Harmeek, nice to have you on board, brother.
My brother.
So today we are going to be talking about the other whole reason I started this podcast. One is to kind of provide career paths to people that are in need. And that's when we bring in professionals and interview them about their careers. But the biggest reason why I actually started this podcast at the very beginning was to bring awareness to mental health, because I feel like, especially in minority cultures such as ours, is a thing that's neglected, or at least not enough education is provided. And as a cause, a lot of the younger generation and even the older generation, without even knowing, go through it. Right. And some of the more serious topics I want to bring to light, if no one else is willing to put a spotlight in our culture on it, I want to do my part, and I'll do it by myself. And so I want to bring up the whole most recent event with Mandeep Kaur. My condolences to her family, and her two daughters, and everyone that's involved. Man, no one deserved what came. And we could talk about it, and a lot of people do. Whenever something big happens like this, especially in all culture, we'll bring it up, we'll post it on social media, we'll share everything, and then we move on. It's like a never-ending cycle where nobody learns. And I want to make an effort at not necessarily just talking about what happened, but also where do we go from here? What are the possible solutions? Obviously, neither you nor I, we're not the professionals here, but that doesn't mean that we can't offer our insight. And when we do have the professionals here, I plan to have mental health experts here, whether it's psychiatrists and all these various counselors. And we will talk about mental health, especially in minority cultures, because, again, there's not enough light on there yet. So, Harmeek, we're going to go ahead and start with, what do you have in mind? What do you think of the whole situation, man?
I would just say, well, one, thank you for having me on, brother.
Oh.
To everybody that doesn't know, I'm Manny's friend from college. And we've been boys ever since, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you start off by telling of people who are uninformed, like what the situation is and what happened?
Well, yeah, let's start there. So Mandeep Kaur, she was married, and they lived in New York. Mm-hmm. And she had gone through a lot of domestic violence or domestic abuse, and she was fed up with her life. She tried to leave the situation, tried to leave the relationship, but the husband, he threatened that if she did such a thing, that he would basically murder the family in India. And she unfortunately had to keep on enduring everything that was going on. And he was mad that, they have two daughters, that she was not able, he blamed her for not being able to birth a son. And she eventually got tired. The abuse went on in front of their daughters. And eventually she ended her life after posting a video of all the abuse that she had endured. Now, the saddest part is, this is just one that went public. There's thousands, there's billions of, people on Earth. So I would say there's like millions of people that are probably going through some sort of abuse.
Some variation of it, yeah.
Some variation of abuse. And in our culture, in the Punjabi culture especially, at least I can't speak for any other culture. And I've had friends that tell me the same thing, that, whenever we discuss, they're like, yeah, same stuff happens in our culture. It seems to be a common thing in all Asian culture, but I can only speak for the one we grew up in the Punjabi culture, where mental health is neglected. You just try different things, go to a doctor every time, and they prescribe you a different pill. The doctors understand what's going on, but our people, they just want a pill to make everything all right, right? And so there's this whole thing with social status. It's it is such a poison, man, that has been going on for generations, and has followed our families all the way out here about what people will think of us. And that leads to so many destroyed lives, and including this, right? This type of abuse was going on. I mean, there's multiple factors, but one of the big factors was what people will think of the guy if they were to divorce, right? And
not think of the guy. I would put it.
I mean, that's why the guy was like, unwilling to do that, because he did not want to lower his social status, right?
Now,
and
if I could add something real quick.
Yeah.
Now, there's that side, and there's also the female side.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And in our culture, especially on the female side, like, how bad that looks, or how the elders think it looks, right? But continue. Sorry.
No. You're 100%. Anything that's considered bad for the male side is 10 times worse for the female. And I fully agree. And so that causes so many rifts in families, in lifestyles, and man, you couldn't name it, right? Like, it's I don't know why our community is so tied to this thing, that even though we've escaped India, not escaped, we've left India, but we've brought that Indian mindset or the Punjabi mindset with us here. And if you want to add something, feel free to stop me. You don't have to.
No. It's okay, man. But yeah, pretty much you gave like an overview of everything I have on the sheet of paper here. I guess we'll get to it step by step, right? So I jotted down a few points I wanted to talk to, just get your insight on it, right? You haven't seen these questions, so
I guess I'm the one being interviewed.
Yeah, right. How the tables have turned, right? But okay. So we know the situation. We know Mandeep Kaur has taken her own life, sadly, right? It could have been so avoidable. But if given the right circumstance, I want to say that, right? Because you saw, like, shout out to Sick Expo, by the way, because they're the ones that gave light to the situation. Like, today, I've seen those 10 slides at least a few times, man. My heart breaks every single time. Like, you see, like, the raw emotion of this lady just crying, saying, I'm tired, I'm over it. Like, I've given it everything that I can, man. I was so sad. And she's our age.
Yeah,
right?
She was 30.
Like, imagine, like, if like a sister of ours was saying the same thing, right? Like, you and I would both jump to her rescue if we could.
Yeah.
Right? But with that being said, the first question I have for you is, how do you think Mandeep Kaur's like parents are feeling right now?
Well, I mean, I personally can't relate, right? It's such a devastating thing. I don't think any one of us can really be like, oh, I understand how they're feeling.
Of course not.
I can only imagine it to being such an unbearable thing. And the fact that she had a whole life in front of her, being 30. And who knows if she did reach out and everything, and they were just unable to do anything about it because because of the threats. Or maybe she stayed away from getting them involved because of the threats that her husband was making.
I want to just say that, like, I'm not really too sure on what all the details are, but I'm basing this off of everything that I know.
Yeah.
So you're right. There is absolutely no way we can relate to these people. I mean, our deepest condolences, obviously, but man, like, just like, it's the thought process they must be having right now. It's like, okay, hey, we put her in that house.
Yeah.
Right? Like as sad as it sounds, like, they are probably blaming themselves for this whole situation to be happening, even though Like this is out of their hands, right? There's no way they could have known. Um, it's just like if you know, like you're putting your daughter in, let's just say, quote unquote, it's like the devil's house, right? Like as a parent, are you ever gonna forgive yourself? No,
No, I don't think so.
not at all, right? I'm not sure if she had any siblings or does she have Mandeep Kaur? Does she?
I am not
Okay.
100% fully informed in terms
Yeah.
of like what their family and everything is like. All I know is what happened
Yeah.
and the circumstances around that sick expo.
Mm.
As opposed to we've heard from like all the other sources
Yeah.
and including her video, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I correct me if I'm wrong, right? But this is what I got. Like they had an opportunity to put her husband in jail, but then she dropped the charges. Is that correct?
I I don't know that, but I know that's probably correct because again, the whole social status thing. What is it going to look like if her husband or again, maybe it's including the threats he was making.
Actually, like I remember in one of the videos she's saying like I just had this hope that he was going to change, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, with that mindset, sure, but like how many times are you going to give a person like a second chance?
Yeah.
Right? Like if time and time again if they beat you, like man, I mean, it's a lose-lose, right? Like on one end you want to leave, but on the other end you can't because you're scared that he might kill you.
Mhm.
So you're never gonna get out of that situation, man. I truly feel sorry for her. Now with that being said, like try to put yourself in the opposite people's shoes, right? What kind of people do you think her in-laws are?
To be honest, I don't know if we can even really. I know I can't make the suggestion that they were at fault or anything like that because were they?
To my understanding, they didn't they treated girls how people in India treat girls, dude, like second-class citizens. To my understanding, right? Again, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But
Yeah,
like,
and again, like I apologize. Like I said at the very beginning, we're not the professionals in this entire case, and there's two ways to go about it. If they knew of the situation and they just kept silent or they encouraged their son to do everything, yeah, man, that's a house full of psychopaths.
so we'll just say it for conversation's sake, right? Let's just say that's how they are, right? We could be wrong, right? And if we do, we'll apologize. But I don't think that's the case because you've let your son do this to their daughter-in-law for years, right? I don't think they're any saints, man.
No, of course not.
It's like, okay, hey, like it's this village mentality, bro. Let's just say what it is. Like it is a village mentality. Like, okay, hey, it's the wife's duty to make the husband
happy.
Oh, no, like God, bro, is what it seems like from the older generation. And so just seeing like these years of like abuse on this lady, right? Like on Sick Expo, you saw two to three videos of her just screaming.
Yeah.
Agony, man. Like that like I'm trying not to curse. Like,
Oh, it's all right.
is it good?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, man. Like it really, it breaks you, man. It's like nobody deserves that. Right, I think he has like a pillowcase and he's legit like trying to wrap her head. It's like, man, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like I'm sure she told her in-laws like, hey, like this is what's happening to me. Like, what do you think they're gonna say? Like, Guego ni, like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, hey, it's not a big deal,
yeah,
right? Like that's just how he is. Like he'll change. Like, what kind of bullshit is that, man?
yeah. It's unfortunate, man, and it's like you can only learn what you've been through, right? Like you can only imagine that maybe it's the same shit he saw growing up. You know how they talk about that? They're like, people that become absolutely blind to abuse because they've seen it so much and they don't know when they're the one that are, when they're the abusers. And it's a possibility because I feel like, again, the whole, you're talking about the villager mentality. And I am not saying every parent or anything like that. Like, that's not the case. There's two types of households. And I think that goes beyond just our culture. That goes across everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's, the house you grow up in is the stuff you learn. in spite or in favor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't know this guy's past in terms of how he grew up or whatever it may be. And I'm not going to try to justify anything he's done.
Which is a great segue, by the way, because my next question was, how do you raise your son to be this way?
You
kind of touched on it as well earlier, right? It's
Yeah.
like you grow up on it, right? You see this happening in your house, right? Like how else can you just go up straight and just full on like hit somebody like that or wrap someone's head in a pillowcase like that? Dude, you can't just learn that. You can't just see that and be like, all right, I'm doing it. You got to be able to be like, hey, I've seen this before and it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Psychopath behavior.
That, and I also think and this is my personal thing that I would love to discuss with someone that's in mental therapy or anything like that, like, therapist,
Mm-hmm.
is like, in our culture, sometimes, like, and once again, and I always have to feel like I say that, and I'm going to continue to say this in every podcast. In no way am I trying to offend every single parent or older generation out there, because there are legit saints. There are legit great people like, your parents, my parents, and everyone that are awesome, right? But also there's households where the parents are 100% super strict. Okay? Let me tell you.
Go a step further.
Yeah.
No, not strict. Go a step further.
They're
What it is.
manipulative.
Go even further. It gets worse.
What would you say?
Without divulging too much in my personal life, right? And this isn't regarding me, it's just the few people that I keep in my circle. Imagine everything that you hear about India, right? It's still happening here. So it's pretty much psychopath behavior, as in like the parents' way goes. If you object, I want to say if that's right. Yeah, if you object, you're either getting beat, you're getting thrown, you're getting like dishes, like I'm trying to figure out what the English word for pande is, like just
Yeah.
like every kitchen utensil is just being thrown at you.
Yeah.
Right? Take it a step further. What happens if it's a bat? Then take it a step further. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I get
without saying, like, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So,
So, there's, but even let's go even to put it where it is. Some families you grow up with, and this is where I think people need to understand. Older generations, they've grown up with that mental. Not saying that they can't learn or anything like that. They obviously can still mature. As long as you have that brain in your head, you can always learn more. But we cannot rely on saying that, trying to teach our parents about what everything is. It's not their fault. It's just like, and no, what you're talking about, that's 100% their fault. I'm talking about like, trying to change their mentality in terms of trying to teach them how society is now.
yeah.
It's not entirely their fault that they can't fully learn that, because not saying they can't make progress, but they can't fully learn it because they've had a certain type of
Thought process
for 40 years, 50 years. It's, bro, we have a hard time just changing our sleep cycle by 10 minutes. You're talking about people that have this knowledge, this thought process for 40, 50 years. It's hard. The what we have to do as a younger generation is try to break that cycle and create that change in our family, because it's hard, because you have parents that are always controlling, and then because of, once again, that goes back to the whole social status, like what people will think of us if our kid did this.
Now, let me ask you a question. Good segue again.
Okay.
All right. And I know where you're going with this, but I'm going to like keep bringing it back
that's
to
fine.
Mandeep Kaur for like a little bit. Now, why do you think having a boy in our culture holds so much weight as compared to a daughter?
Because they want you to be able to pass that name over to the next generation and carry that name over. And then there's this whole situation about, that's how you have a successful family, is if you have a son who will bring further generations with you. That's my personal opinion of the importance of it. I never really dug in too much, but I know it's like, they want a son because that's regarded as a high value in our culture. And where a daughter, you're going to be basically giving her away, when she gets married, or it's like you have this extra pressure on you of your daughter acting out or whatever it may be.
Okay.
So like they're scared that, the daughter might bring shame to the family in some way, because again, the whole social, like if the daughter is out with her friends, what will people think?
What are people gonna say?
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to put. And so us as a younger generation, the best thing we can do is really, unfortunately, only change our future generations to learn differently, because we understand, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I can speak from personal experience in terms of like some parents, they were so controlling of their kid, and they think this kid is the nicest kid out there, and then that's not the case, because he's my friend. You see him acting out. He's 100% opposite of what he is at home, right? Like and I feel like that's also why a lot of our younger generation is stuck on alcohol, stuck on drugs, is because they're trying to find some type of segue to get out of that, whatever triggers their happy,
Okay.
and that drinking socially is completely different than relying on alcohol for the happiness, right?
Yeah. If I could pause you real quick, I want to bring it back to something. You mentioned that, like, if a daughter goes out with, with the older Indian generation mindset, right? If a daughter goes out and, let's just say like there's a group of 4 of them, they go to like a mall in India, right? Come back home. I mean, if this was back in the day and they come home at like 9, 10, right? They're probably going to get beat.
Yeah.
They're going to get beat at home by their mom or their dad saying you're outside being a whore, right? Now, unfortunately, the double standard is crazy here, right? Because let's just say if that same, and like, let's just say if that same family had a son, right? And he was out with his boys, 4 to 5 of them at the mall doing the same exact thing, just having a good time. Do you think the parents are going to welcome him the same way?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Right? Why is that?
Again, it's the whole fact, this is going to sound crude.
Vent it out, bro.
But it's because they see, again, the value in their children for the society. So, for example, if
we're talking about the older generation. Yeah. I want to make sure if you clip this up, right? Like, this will be there.
Yeah, and the older generation because I've seen some older generation that have adapted and they have full understanding. I have seen people like that.
Shout out Dada Dadi.
Yeah, man, and like it, but unfortunately, older generations that do have the old school mindset see their kids and everyone as commodities in a way. All right.
How's that?
Let me tell you that.
Okay.
Your son goes out, does all that stuff. His value doesn't matter, because his value is going to be able to pass on the generation and work, bring home the money. Okay. So his value is always going to be safe, which is why, in my opinion, they're always okay with it. Now, unless, of course, he's also in a situation where he's surrounded by the wrong people, then, that's different. But for a female, the commodity is your value goes into what your social status is. If she is out on the mall and with her friends and a relative, someone that your family knows says, hey, I saw your girl outside the mall or outside of the mall
doing absolutely nothing.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
That brings the value down into How many people have seen this? Who knows about this? How are we going to get you married? How are you going to do this? You see that becomes a commodity because now your value has dropped.
Bro, preach, man.
And so that's what I mean when I say this old school thinking of having children as commodities. Now they may have a hard time of saying that, admitting that, but that's just because they don't want to backpedal what they've thought their entire lives, right?
Yeah.
And
But the crazy part is like the kids know this too.
yeah.
Right? Like even like let's just say
Well, what is the kid gonna do?
right? They're not gonna do anything at all. If
Well,
they're living in their parents' house. They cannot rebel. If they rebel, they get hit.
Listen, and it doesn't even have to get hit. It's unfortunately, it's also weighed heavily on our head. The whole social thing you grow up with your parents telling, hey, don't do this because what will people think of it? You grow up in that type of mentality, and unfortunately, indirectly, you have it in you that if I do this, people are going to say some shit about our parents.
Which is not true at all. But
Not
continue.
well. I mean, our generation won't say shit about our parents, but we know relatives. We know, and we don't. And at that point, we're not. See, this is where the silver lining is: the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
If something makes you happy, right, and you end up giving up that happiness because you're afraid, because you care about your parents too, right? Like, we love our parents, right? I love my parents. You love your parents. And there are things we would give up for our parents. And, unfortunately, sometimes it could be, and, for anyone, it could end up being the smallest thing that makes you the happiest, but you're giving it up because you have the mentality in your head that's been ingrained. What are people going to think of us? If I was to do this, what are they going to say about my parents? Like, we don't want our parents to be disrespected at all, which is 100% a valid reason. That is a great reason to make the choices you make. But at the same time, when you mix that with parents that control everything, okay, let me take this somewhere. When you mix that with parents that control everything, what you do, how you do it, and sometimes without it being their fault, because again, that's just a thought process they've grown up with. They don't even know, right? Like a psychopath doesn't know what he's doing wrong until he's diagnosed as a psychopath, right? To him, he was acting within reason, whatever that reason may be. And not saying our parents are psychopaths or anything like that, but, well, at least not all of them. But, and that even younger generations, it's not just our parents. But at the same time, it's like if the parents don't understand, if the parents don't put their own family over their public opinion, I think that's where
the lashing out happens.
The lashing out, not even the lashing out, that's just where, in my opinion, the family is broken. Okay. What I mean by that is the person giving up the happiness because they don't want people to be, because the parents are controlling, and then they don't want a specific point of view to the public, right? What others will think. I think that person lives a double life, meaning he is not happy at home, right? He has to be...
He or she
is not happy at home, and they have to be something they're not. When they're out with their friends, they can be, or with anyone, they can be happy, but at the same time, they can't even be truly happy there because they're scared that someone is going to find something out, right? Because someone's going to tell my parents. So you can't live an honest life when is what I'm trying to say. And think about it, bro, like if the older generation or whomever is, the parents, if they were just to say, I just want my kids' happiness, regardless of what people will think, right? Like maybe the kid believes in something or does something that maybe that is not for the parent, but the parent, as long as it's not hurting anyone, you know what I mean? Like obviously if the parent doesn't believe in violence and the kid is going out there beating people up, you know, that's a bad thing. But if the kid is out there and he has interest in fighting, let's say school fighting or whatever, maybe, you know, like if there's differences in interest, I feel like it's hard in our society for the parent to really be okay with that because it's not what they thought their kid would be.
Okay.
Because it's not what they've told their friends their kid would be.
Oh, okay.
Right? It goes even to careers, right? Like where, you know, my son's gonna be a doctor. My son's gonna be a doctor. Oh, son, why aren't you a doctor? And I explain the reasoning, and bam, that's like to them.
Our respect is gone.
Part of the respect is gone. It's not what they thought of you.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, okay, you know, you're happy with it. I'm happy with it. It's okay. I don't care what other people say. That whole point of what others will think, unfortunately, also leads us to giving up our own happiness to, you know, which again breaks up families, in my opinion, because even if families live together at that point, you're not enjoying being home. You're not enjoying being around each other. And of course, neither side is going to come out and say that because neither side wants to really fight, right? But at the same time, no one's really fixing anything. And that whole old school mentality of putting how other people think over what makes our kids happy, it needs to change.
Now, I'm going to take it in a different direction, right?
Okay.
So this actually reminded me of a situation I was aware of like maybe a year ago. And literally this guy, I can say that much, this guy was in the same situation, right? Living in a house where he wanted to live his life one way, but his family wouldn't allow him to do it, right? And in this particular situation, it was more of a religious thing, right? As in, this guy wanted to cut his hair and just be the way that he wanted to be, but his parents were very religious and very much against that, right? And so, like, you got to imagine this kid growing up, like, especially after 9/11, right? Constantly getting teased, getting called a terrorist.
Oh, yeah, I've been through that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, the mental toll it takes on you. Right. And that too, like in the early stages of your development, you still don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you keep it to yourself too.
Right. And so imagine this snowball effect, right? Fast forward to today, right? The same rules he had as a 10, 11, 10, like 12-year-old, right, are still being imposed when he's close to 30. All right. Now, at some point, like the mental toll is now at an all-time high, right? Because you're kind of lost, as in you don't have an identity, right? In one hand, you want to go live your life, you want to do what makes you happy, right? But what keeps pulling you back? Your family, right? Now, how long are you going to keep doing that up until you break, right? And along that, and I mean, along this whole ride that this person's going on, the depression keeps adding up.
Yep.
Right? Because it's like, oh no,
you can't get out of the situation, basically.
That and like, I want to be happy, but I can't because someone else's happiness, my parents, is more important to me than my own. Right? And then you bring it back to like, what happens if this person gets pushed to the extreme? Right? Where they tried talking to people, where they tried getting help, right? Like getting pills just to make them feel better. But then what happens if it isn't enough? And then next thing you know, I hope it never happens, but like next thing you know, this person takes their own life, right? This is a legitimate concern, like, and it should be it's more of a taboo subject in our community.
Oh, 100%.
But let's be real, like it happens a lot. Like you see it all around us, right? And that in that case, when you know you're not happy and you know you're really just doing this for your family, but it's killing you inside, what do you do? Like that, this is the $1 million question, right? Like, what do you do? It's like a fork in the road, right? Either you go left, make yourself happy, don't care about the consequences, and you live your own life, even though you're going to burn a couple of bridges along the way, right? Which I always believe that bridges can be repaired.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But if let's just say if you go right, you know, like you keep it to yourself. You want to do what makes your family happy.
Mm-hmm.
They marry you to somebody because they're like that strict.
They fit the mold of what they want rather than what you want.
And now you're stuck in this unhappy marriage.
Yep.
Right? And on top of that, you add your depression to this.
Yep.
And every single time, like you look at in this case, it's a guy, right? But let's just say if it's a guy, a man or a woman, just looking at the other person, my bad. And you're not happy at seeing them. What's that going to do to you? And then on top of that, you're putting, like the other person that's in this relationship with you may feel like, oh, hey, I'm the reason why this is happening. And now guess what? That's another snowball about to go. Right? Like there's so many layers to this. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about in terms of like, you know, when you mix the whole controlling factor and wanting to putting other people's happiness over yours.
Oh, I just got a question.
Hmm.
Now, again, it relates to this topic.
Okay.
Right? Mandeep Kaur's husband, right? I'm pretty sure, you know, his parents raised him in a very specific way, right? Just how they were brought up. Let's just say if he has a son, or if he had a son, right, with the same lady, how would he raise him? It's crazy, huh? It's a crazy thought.
Yeah. It's
like, okay, you have like, let's just say if she was still here with us, right? Like you have the good, which is her, and I mean, I'm assuming she's good-hearted, right? And then you have the bad, which is his dad, right? And obviously being in that environment, it seems like the dad was super controlling. So guess what? You're giving birth to another spawn of the same type of person.
Yeah, and like I can't talk on that. I don't have enough knowledge about.
It's just theoretical, bro.
Yeah. No, I know, but it's like. But what I can expand more on is you can't. If you don't refill your bucket with water and you keep on giving that water to everyone else, eventually you're going to run out. And you can't keep on giving water without refilling. It's the same thing with the whole happiness. You know, you can keep on trying to make other people happy, but if it ends up being, you know, something that makes that's what I want to emphasize so much on, man. Like if the older generation can just understand that, you know, the kids don't have the same, they can have the same point of view, but not the same specific beliefs or not. Okay.
No, that's correct.
Let's not.
Belief is correct. Yeah.
The values. Okay. Like, you know, we could respect the values and everything, but it doesn't mean you, like, I feel like if people just understand in our culture that if you raise a kid, 100%, 1000%, teach them what you think is important. But a big emphasis on but. If they grow to an age where they can make their own decisions and they choose not to follow one of the things you taught them. Now, they're aware of it, but they don't necessarily agree with it or they don't follow it. That's when you, the parent, have to learn to be like, okay, And
why is this, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
instead of being like, why is he not believing in it? Why is he not doing this? Why is he, now what are people, because I raised him and people have seen him grow up to be who he is. Now he's doing this. Like, what are people going to think? Because I can 100% guarantee you, you're either choosing between the happiness of your kid or the social status of your family. Because our generation, and I apologize in advance
Don't apologize, bro. Be honest.
for cussing out, for any of the younger audience that's watching, but our generation and the future generations don't give a fuck about what people think. And I am proud of that. Like me, I used to care a lot about what people will think. Now I'm not afraid of what other people will think because, quite frankly, I don't give a fuck about them, and I respect my family and everything, but the thought of others, I don't really care about that anymore. I don't hold that weight on me anymore, because I don't want to be fake, right? And you're talking about if you live your life being fake, that will catch up with you someday, where you are going to be like, man, I wasted my life being someone I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you're either going to go in a deep depression with the snowball effect because you feel like you wasted your life and you have no value in life. And this is the other thing I wanted to...
Let me rephrase that. No value in life. I would change it to no value to your parents.
What was that?
No value to your parents.
Right.
No,
right.
Yeah. That's all.
Let me also say one thing. When we were talking about why kids, especially in the Punjabi community, are big alcoholics, right? I'm talking about the people that rely on alcohol to be happy.
I mean, that's anybody. But we'll talk about it in our culture, okay?
Yeah, in our again, yeah, it is in all the cultures, but I can only speak about our culture. It's an special thing in our culture because everywhere you go, people are drinking out of their minds. But I think it's also because they've fallen to this thing that they can only achieve happiness when they're drunk, right? Like, ask anybody, hey, like, let's dance or let's do this when you're sober. It's like, no, man, I gotta loosen up, or I gotta do this, I gotta do that.
Guilty.
But a lot of that is indirectly because in the back of your mind, you are relying. And again, I'm not saying every person that drinks is an alcoholic, but that is how alcoholism starts. It starts with you having fun once, right? And then you go through all that stuff, and then you're like, man, I need to, like, you go through all these bullshit stages where you're just adding more and more stress, that snowball effect. Then you fall into that. It's, my only getaway is drugs and alcohol, right? And why do you think drugs are such a big thing in India or in Punjab, right? It's because there is so much depression. People don't know about. They don't even know they're depressed, right? Because in our culture, man, you just got to be happy, right? You just got to be thankful for what you have. And
No. What do you hear the most out of all like the Indian uncles? But don't stress, man. It's okay. You're like, dude, shut the hell up, man. You know what I'm going through.
Or even,
Relax, man.
Yeah.
Relax. God, I hate that one.
No, and
you know who you are.
No, and it sucks because I feel like if you grow up to be, unhappy, you have two ways to go about it, right? You end up in a deep, deep depression where it could lead to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other is you get into a deep, deep rage that you act out, that you lash out on others. Okay. Point of being is neither side is a good effect. And we really need to emphasize, families really need to educate. And if you're a younger person and you want to share these podcasts with your parents and everything, like I said before, if no one else is really speaking out, I'm sure there are people out there, but I'm going to do my part to be the one to do it on my end. That's why these podcasts, that's why the whole Vented Out podcast started, is because we want to be able to sit down and vent about these things. We want to be able to bring light to mental health because we see it. It's so prevalent in our culture, man. I don't even think people understand.
Can I share a story?
Yeah.
All right. So, mental health, right? Without sounding too dramatic, I see a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have absolutely no shame in saying that.
Oh,
Right.
but aren't you worried about what people are going to think, Harmeek?
I have 2 words, bro. Fuck them. All right. I mean, every single time a person comes up to me like, dude, can I talk to you? I'm like, of course, but understand, like,
You have your own baggage.
they don't know that. But the thing is, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I need to talk to you, right? You're not going to say no,
Yeah.
right? But I want to just tell everybody, like, look, there's no shame in seeing a therapist, a psychiatrist, anything, right? Your happiness should triumph everybody else's, right? This whole concept of right, or like, what are people gonna say? It's dumb. It's a high school mindset from back in the village that's brought here, right? Because that's all that they know.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's ruined a lot of lives, right? I've seen it happen firsthand, right? And in my situation, right, I guess I'll give you some insight on what brought me to a therapist, right? I have without getting too much into it, there's like a lot of stuff, like I'm okay, but everything around me is going to hell, right? And so it got to a point where I was lashing out, as in like screaming, yelling, everything. Like it was affecting the closest people around me, right? And it got to a point where like one of the close friends I had at the time, like he was actually advised me to like, hey, go see a therapist, and he recommended this for months, right? But then you're like, look, like my mindset back in the day was like, look, I've done everything my way, right? Like I can get through this on my own, right? Like I've been through tougher stuff, and like I'll be okay, right? Just take it day by day, right? What happens if one of those days is just it's an overwhelming burden,
Right. What you're
right?
going to do?
And so it even got to a point where I'm like, I can't deal with this. I just need to turn my brain off, right? So what do? You smoke weed, right? You drink alcohol, right? Like you get involved with people that you shouldn't be involved with just because they're trying to have a good time. And you're just trying to forget all your problems, right? And how do you phrase this correctly? If you go through that experience and then come out saying this isn't for me, I need help, like, but in a different way, you're actually a very strong person,
Mm-hmm.
which people don't seem to understand that, right? Because kids in our generation, for some reason, have this dumb mentality of like, chalo, koi gal nahi, right? Like, whatever. But that's not the case at all, bro. Oh, hold on, let me keep going. Like, I had that mentality for like, I want to say a year and a half, right? And it snowballed into me raging everywhere, as in like work, home, like when I was hanging out with the people around me, right? The crazy thing is nobody would know because I wouldn't show it like to the public, right? But on the inside, I was like having the darkest of thoughts. As in, like, if someone cut me off in traffic, I would be like in my mind, I would like, I want to just hit her with my car, right? Or if someone just stepped in front of me at the gym, I want to clock them in the face, right? These were legitimately like the thoughts I was having, right? It was a very dark place I was in. So finally, and thankfully my insurance took care of it. Like I saw a therapist, right? And within minutes, dude, like I felt like this weight just getting lifted off my chest, right? Like everything just seemed to come like a lot easier. Like all the therapist told me was, okay, what's going on in your life? And then there's no judgment on my part, so feel free. Dude, I was in tears within 15 minutes. And it was only like a 45-minute therapist block, but like just to get all that out. And by the way, crying is okay. I want to make sure that is clear.
Yes. None of that. Ronani,
Yeah.
like
Crying is okay. Like a good cry, bro. Like I would highly recommend it to everybody.
yeah, get
Like,
it out.
Just get it out, right? Like, you feel better, right? You may look ugly as hell, but you feel better, right? But then like a few minutes from there, you're like, I feel great. Like the stress is gone, you know? So to anybody that's listening to this and needs like an excuse to go see a therapist or get one, this is it. Go. Highly recommend it. I haven't been let down yet. I'm not sure do you see a therapist?
No.
No? Okay. But I would recommend it to everybody.
If I need one, I will definitely. You know, and that's the thing. And seeing a therapist, like you said, is not a bad thing. Don't worry about what other people. And so you brought up, you know, like you just said, fuck them, and you want to go see a therapist. And the fact that you try to live with what you were going through before you saw a therapist. How much of that do you think is because you're taught, and also the social media culture, right? You don't want to look weak. You're so caught at there's that thing that you've learned since you were a kid. What will people think of me? Right? That mentality, I see it, in my opinion, I see a future where that mentality is gone and everything is, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I guarantee you it's going to be 10 times more uplifting because you're going to have families talking with each other. You're going to have families that are okay with how things are. You don't have to, like, your kid doesn't have to be who you are, right? Like everything that parents teach you that, you know, or in a sense, they're trying to teach you everything they know, which is great. But it's also with the expectation of my kid growing up to be like me, where they have values like me, where they have the thought process like me. It's 100% okay if the kid does not turn out to be the way you think they are. And I'm not talking about like being disappointed in your kid or anything like that, but I'm talking about accepting that, you know, their happiness has a different definition than your happiness. And I think because we keep on clinging to what people will think of our family, that we end up sacrificing our kids' happiness. And our kid is not going to, you know, they love their parents, right? Not every parent is bad to be, or not every parent needs to be abusive or bad to be controlling. Some of them are indirectly controlling because that's how they grew up. And they don't even know that they're controlling, and they don't. And then when you try to express that you're sad about it, they don't understand. They legit just don't understand, right? They don't understand what sadness is, why you're going through it. They're just seeing that you're not respecting everything they've taught you and what your family thinks of you. But to me, man, family needs to accept that everyone has different ways of being happiness, as long as they're not hurting anyone or making dumb choices to where they're sacrificing their life or whatever it may be. You know, if it's something as simple as, you know, oh, they like someone because of certain qualities, maybe, you know, that you don't know about, but the only thing you know about it is that they don't have the qualities you're looking for, right? In physical appearance, or maybe, you know, they do this and your family does not. I mean, it's not like that person would come in and try to change your family, right? As long as one person is not trying to change the values of the other, is what I'm trying to say. If everyone can just respect each other's values, each other's beliefs, why can't we live together and under one roof as a big happy family? But unfortunately, again, the poison in the entire pond is what the society will think of you. That mindset needs to go. And it is up to us to try to educate that to the elders. And if they don't understand,
fuck them.
If they don't understand, don't try to, you know, be you can't be mad at that. At the same point I try to make at the beginning, that's just a thought process they've had, and you could agree to disagree. They may not like it, but if they truly love you as an individual, as a person, as their son, daughter, you know, they'll come around someday.
They will. I truly, I mean, if they're good-hearted people, they will.
Yeah, and and if they really believe that their personal values are more important than your happiness, that you end up giving your own happiness up, your own future up, because that's something people don't understand either, is you're not just controlling your kid, you are now controlling the lives of your kid and the future generations to come. Because you go back to the point, what if now you're, with people that made your family happy but not necessarily you happy, and your kids, like, you can't even be 100% wholehearted with them, right? Now you're messing up that life. And it sucks, man, because it's such a cycle, it's such a poisonous cycle that for whatever reason keeps on rolling into every generation. It keeps on rolling, and people are either scared or they just feel like they're unheard to break that cycle. Well, we are here, and I'm not the only one. You're not the only one. There's so many people that are stepping up, and I'm glad they are, and I hope this evolution continues and we all end up being happy at the end, man, because happiness is truly what life is all about. It's not money. It's not about,
Status.
Huh?
It's not about status either, bro. It's
not about status. It's, I know we like to show off everything we have online. That's cool. If, you want to do that, that's just what makes you happy. I guess that's cool. But
just a quick sidebar. To everybody that follows Manny on Instagram, this fool loves to show off his body.
Okay, listen. All right. Out of all the troubles I've had, I grew up being bullied for the whole 9/11 thing. I did not share anything. I grew up bullied being fat.
I remember freshman man.
And so, like, the gym is
go to the gym. That's a perfect therapy
that is
place.
a great. People need to understand, like, gym is not for exercise. Not just, you get physical appearance changes, you get all these physical goals, great. But trust me, when you are there, when you click with it, it's a mental escape from, because for that 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you're there for, you're not thinking about anything except what you're doing. And that, in a very much different way, is a meditation in itself. Mm-hmm. And it's a break from the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And then it kicks out the greatest hormones in your body to make you feel great. It kicks off the happy hormone to make you feel better. And then you start getting the results you want, which is losing weight, gaining muscle, whatever it may be. And then you get even more happy at it. So when you see me
posting yourself on Instagram.
Bro, there's like 3 posts a day. I come.
There's 3 posts a day.
Shut
it's
up.
All the same thing.
When you come from the background I came from, where I was bullied of being fat, and now I have something that the younger me was wishing I had in terms of like how I look or whatever it may be. If I can encourage, and I did try that. I tried to go away for like a month, and I got all these messages, and they're like, hey, listen, like, this humbled me in very much different ways. I'm not trying to boast about myself or whatever. I don't even understand how some of these people would message me something like that, but they're like, Manny, like, in many ways, stop. But they were like, your posts motivate us. And I don't know how, like, there's kids and everyone, all the younger audience, they see me motivating. Older people, they see me motivating. And it's like, because they feed off of my positive energy, whatever that means. And then, or they're like, they understand where I come from because I was overweight. I'm vegetarian. So people were like, you can't look like that. You can't be as strong as that because you're a vegetarian. I was legit told that to my face. And in many ways, especially in our community, where people are going through something similar, I'm keeping this Sardar look because it's not trying to push it on anyone else. I don't go, Harmeek, you got to keep your hair and everything. Like, that's not me. But at the same time, I'm keeping it because I'm not afraid to be who I am. Going through that whole 9/11 stuff, we still get those weird looks today. Oh, he's wearing a turban and he's got a beard. He's he's got to be a terrorist, apparently.
Bro, do you see that Jess Hilarious video where she's like on an airplane and like a sick guy like walked in the plane
Yeah.
and she's like, "Yo, get him out. He's a terrorist." Like, can you? This still
And
happens.
so people are still going through that, and it's and I'm not afraid to be who I am in society. I'm not gonna go on my way. If you're an asshole to me, I'm gonna be like, oh, hi, try to earn their respect. No, if you don't like me, that's fine. It's not gonna change who I am. And so when I'm posting stuff like that, it's because I'm trying to make people smile, people laugh, motivate people, whatever it may be. And in many ways, it is also me being proud of where I'm at now. All right.
You're fat, bro. Those abs are fake.
No. Trauma coming back. PTSD.
But I actually have a question for you.
All right.
Well, I have a statement I want to say because this is back to the former topic. Imagine if we come to a place in society where like all the auntie, all the bibian.
Oh God.
No. I'm going in the right direction. Like they're all talking about how their kids are seeking therapy and how it's helping them out at the Gurdwara.
Oh yeah.
Like imagine
how much better that would be. And it's not even exclusive to the BBN. And because they're all guys to like uncles and everyone that are like, oh, I heard your kid was doing that or something like that. Yeah. What if they were to bring that in a positive light where it's like, oh, that person is working on themselves. Mm-hmm. Great. That's awesome to hear. But no, that's the whole, when you hear that, unfortunately, right now, the auntie, the BBN, the uncles, it's not, oh, I'm happy they're working on themselves. I'm like, why are they working on themselves? Like, I heard something is going on at their house. What's triggering that? They want to know the whys.
They want to know the dirt, right?
They want to know the dirt that they can share with other people. And that goes back to the whole, like, social status.
So, again, hopefully one day we get to the part where, like, instead of saying, like, what's wrong in their house, right? What happens if we get to a point where we say, look how strong they are? To actually going out. No, I'm just saying, no, but it's not going to happen with the older generation, right? It's going to come with us.
Yeah.
And like how we teach our kids. Now, this is a topic I wasn't going to think I was like going to discuss today with you, but why is dating outside of our culture so frowned upon? Or is it, why is it just like, oh my God, what are people going to say, right? Like, why is that? Because I have my own 2 cents about it. But
I probably am not the best person to ask, mainly because I've never experienced that myself. However, I can share my 2 cents. I think it goes back to the biggest thing is what people will think of us. Okay. 2 is because you would assume, and this is where the commodity comes in, the thought of commodity, kids as commodity. You would think that a girl that's raised in a good Punjabi home is a better grown up, like she knows the gender roles, or at least she knows how to do all this stuff better. Whereas like if you were to bring someone from a different race, they don't have the same values. Again, this goes back to and I'll play the opposite side too. I fully understand. Again, the older generation, I understand where you want to, because it's not just our generation or our culture. You see it even in the majority culture, any minority culture. It's in every culture. And I think it's a lot to do with tribalism. You want someone from your own tribe to carry your name. That's personally what I think. Because anytime you bring someone from an outsider tribe, you automatically assume them to be a lesser value because they don't have the same belief system or the value system as your family does or you do.
So with that being said, let me go on a little bit of a rant here. Right?
Okay. And we will be ending it after.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while. It's actually a very good topic to end off on because I'm very passionate about this topic too. All right. So let me go on a little bit of a rant here. That belief that like, okay, hey, this person is less because, like they're not part of us, right? I believe it to be complete and utter bullshit. All right.
Hold up. Before you go anywhere, I just want people to know Harmeek is engaged to an Indian.
I wasn't going to go that far.
So no. Just just for people that are like, oh, he's just saying this because he's probably stuck in a situation or anything like that. No, that is not the case. I slapped that.
Yeah.
That is not the case. He is literally venting about it because it is something progressive that I do see across all cultures worth slagging. Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's
Keep
okay.
on.
And my fiance and I'm gonna keep her name out of this, right? Like we've talked about this as well, so I'm okay. But I personally believe how like our parents and how like their parents and every other generation before that thinks like, oh my god, like you can't date outside your race or culture is complete and utter bullshit, right? Personally, I believe like as human beings we're supposed to go outside and explore, right? And then whoever we end up with, like they make us happy at the end of the day, right? No matter black, Asian, white, right? Whatever. Now, speaking from personal experience, right? And I guess this kind of ties back into like, you know, what are people going to say and all that. There's someone I'm aware of and they're married. Well, he's married to a Middle Eastern girl, right? He's Punjabi and married to a Middle Eastern girl, right? Now, the process of them getting married took about 2 years, right? And this entire time, the family is just trying to just instill this idea like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? The family name is going to go to shit. Like, what are people going to say, right? Like, it's all that dumb BS. Now, this guy, he took it for 2 years, right? And everybody from my family was trying to talk to him, trying to like convince him like whatever route he's going down on, it's not the right path, right? And again, he was mentally strong, or he is mentally strong, right? Strong-willed and just had this belief that like, no, like I got this, right? Whatever my parents saying are wrong, I'm willing to bet on myself, right? So imagine having your family just gang up on you, both individually and all together, just ripping you apart, saying that like whatever you're doing is wrong. She's gonna bring shame upon all of us. Our family name is gonna go to hell, right? Imagine saying fuck all that, and then imagine having the family like threaten you, we're not gonna show up to your wedding, and still having the balls to say, all right, don't show up, right? But guess what? Whenever it was his wedding, what did his family do?
They showed up.
They showed up. Because it's all a fucking lie. Because at the end of the day, that's their son.
Yeah.
And they're not going to turn their back on their son, no matter how much, and no matter how much, like, no matter how much he rebels, they're always going to be there for him. And they know it's the same feeling, right? And now guess what? And this is the kicker, right? Whenever kids are introduced, whenever they see their grandkids for the very first time, all these thoughts go out the fucking window. And now all they want to do is just build like this family bond. So it kind of makes you think like what just happened in the past like 2 to 3 years with all this BS that you were putting everybody through to now whenever he has a kid and everything's fine. So I'm actually going to go out here on a limb and say that if you're dating outside your culture and your parents are going to give you so much shit, keep going, man. Like, keep going. Don't get me wrong, I love my fiance, right? And I'm very happy to be with her, right? But this is for everybody else that like is in this situation. Because what are they going to do? They're going to kick you out of the house. And hopefully you have a career and you have your own, you know, that's a preface, right? Like you have your career, you're making your own money, you're standing on your feet, right? If you tell them that, let's just say like if an Indian guy was going to marry a black girl, right? And to us, that's like the ultimate humiliation. What happens if you go home to a religious family, right, and tell them I'm marrying a black girl, I'm going to cut my hair, do all this and do that. And they're like, okay, we won't speak to you. And they'll be like, all right, deuces, right? You go out there, you have a wedding, you have kids. At some point, your family, because they love you so much, are going to come back. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that.
Yeah, I have a friend that she did that. And yeah, it came around to, years later, they have kids and parents like, that is our daughter and we love her. And that's fine. And the whole point of this podcast is, love your kids, love your parents more than what the public perception of, your family would be. Because I could guarantee you, if you were to prioritize the family perception, what the public thinks of your family, what the public thinks of you, your kid may be smiling, your kid may be acting happy, but just know you are choosing that not only over your kids' happiness, your future generation's happiness. And if you're okay with that, if you're 100% okay with that, just know that you're only going to eventually lose that kid one way or another, whether it's in the worst case scenario, right? Which happens. Or that person's just going to break off the family. And that bridges can be repaired. Mm-hmm. But I think at that point, the bridge is gone.
You got to take a leap of faith.
You got to take a leap of faith. And so it comes down to, do you put your personal beliefs and your values and the public perception over the happiness of your kid and your family, or the other way around? And hopefully whatever decision you make, and I hope the younger audience is able to share this podcast with the older generation that may be interested. And maybe you want to show this to your parents to make them, if you can't say it, we're here talking for you, right? That's basically what we did. These opinions are not just ours. It's shared in our community. We talk about these things with our friends, with other people in similar age groups, younger age groups. We all talk about this stuff outside the house because we can't say it. And I hope with this podcast, we're able to reach that. We're able to fill in that hole. We're able to get to the point you want to get to with your family discussions. Obviously, we're going to continue to explore these topics, especially when I have professionals on here. I can't wait for those episodes because more than anything, Vented Out podcast was created for topics like these to bring attention to the mental aspect, which is neglected in all minority communities, especially in our community. And then if you're lost, you don't know what to do because you grew up thinking you're going to be a doctor and it didn't end up being your thing. And now you're trying to find what you're trying to be. Hopefully one of these career interviews I do with all these professionals, we just started. We're going to go into NFL players. We're going to go into doctors, any profession you can think, lawyers. I'm having all these professionals come over.
Civil engineer, bro.
Civil engineer. We're going to have Harmeek back for sure to so he can discuss the pathway of becoming a civil engineer. All these things. I really, really deeply care for communities. I want to be a voice. I want the community the supporters of this podcast to be a voice, to share that voice. We all have to grow together. And I fully call me an optimist. I fully believe we will. It'll get to the point where these issues, it'll still exist. But I have full faith that it won't be as large. You can never get rid of 100% of an issue, but the best you can do is to control it, to prevent it, to lessen the impact. And I think we will eventually get to that point. But until then, keep on tuning to Vented Out Podcast.
Oh my God. Already full.
Have a good one, everyone.
See you.